So in the world of all the action cameras out there that boast that they're the best budget action camera, can this Victure AC940 actually be the best budget action camera for 2021? Stay tuned, we're going to find out. So, as I've mentioned in a previous video, the Victure AC940 has the same outer body as that of the Campark V40 and the Akaso Brave 7LE, but I'll touch a little bit more on that later. Now, the build quality of this action camera is actually very good, but I'm a bit concerned about the 4K at 60 frames per second claim because they also had that claim with the AC920, which was just 1080p at 60 frames per second, actually upscaled to 4K, and it showed in its poor quality at that resolution, even though they bumped up the bit rate to a very high bit rate to try to compensate for that. This camera comes with many accessories in the box, and it's nice that it comes with two 1350 milliamp hour batteries. Alright, well now it's time to do a quick little test in all the different resolutions with this camera. Then we're going to take a look at indoor lighting and then just some walking around with the park just to see how the image stabilization really looks. Okay, so once again, this is 4K 30 frames per second. We'll see how the image quality looks. And then we're going to start through the lower resolutions and work our way back up. Alright, this is 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now we're at 1080p 60 frames per second. Now we're at 2.7K 30 frames per second. And now supposed 4K at 60 frames per second. So if we take a look at the 4K 60 frames per second and look at it compared to the 1080p 60 frames per second, you're going to be able to notice that they're identical. Now, at 4K 60 frames per second, it's recording at 119 megabits per second, which is a very high bit rate. It's only beneficial if you're trying to take 1080 resolution, trying to upscale it up to 4K. But then again, 1080p at 4K will never look like a true native 4K. Now, I know in the past I've kind of banged on these little budget action cameras for this and for that. And I got to keep in mind that, you know, when you're talking about a budget action camera that is just over $100, that is waterproof, that shoots 4K 30 frames per second, has decent image stabilization. Now, when we talk about image stabilization, and you see me do a lot of these reviews, we've all come to expect a certain amount of image stabilization. Now, like with the Akaso V50 Pro, when it first came out, it had decent image stabilization considering that it was native 4K. But when you look at the V50 Pro now in 2021 and you compare it to like the GoPro Hero 7, the GoPro Hero 8. The 9, the Osmo Action, they're miles apart because the V50 Pro had a lot of that wobbling, warping stuff going on the outside edges where the processor was trying to compensate for all the movements. So with saying that, I mean, is this a bad budget action camera? No. I think the colors are a little bit off on this action camera. All in all, I mean, is this the budget action camera of 2021? I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because this is only April of 2021, and I think we've got a lot more things coming down the pike. Now, when it comes to the Victure, you know, it is waterproof in its case. But I will say one thing about the waterproofness. These doors are so difficult. Like this side door, not too bad. The battery drawer, I mean, you actually have to push the button down, stick your nail in it, and slide that battery drawer open. It would make you kind of feel like this thing could go a couple 100 feet underwater and be waterproof, but it's not. So all in all, I mean, the Victure 940, is it an upgrade from the 920? Yes. I think it's a lot better in build quality. I think that the picture on a scale of 1 to 10 as far as 4K image quality, I'll give this one a 7. It's not the greatest, but it's not by far the worst either. So, and this image stabilization is decent. Now, you have to remember, with these processors that a lot of these budget action cameras use, they can only handle so and so much information trying to stabilize that footage, because it does take a lot of built-in internal memory, and that's where the GoPro Hero 8 and GoPro Hero 9 really come to life, because they have a lot of built-in memory to help that processor deal with information to compensate for these movements, where these lesser expensive budget action cameras, they just don't have that kind of processing power to be able to kind of balance out a lot of the movement and shakes and jitters that you'll get. So all in all, I think it's a decent action camera. So if you're on a tight budget, this may be something for you to consider, especially if you want something that is waterproof, shoots 4K, you get pretty good image quality. The audio, not the best in the world by far, but it's not the worst either. I mean, it's a little bit on the muffled side, but when you consider that they have to put a membrane over that microphone capsule to be able to keep the camera waterproof, that membrane is going to block a little bit of audio. So I'll put product links in the description below. I'm kind of curious to hear what you've got to say about this Victure AC940 in the comments below. And I'll catch you on the next review. Bye-bye.